Okay, so another kind of activity and thing that I want you guys to think about as a means of kind of immersing yourself in this project that I've been immersing myself in is just the common themes of these dystopian pieces of literature or just entertainment. Like, for example, I think that there's a lot of really cool comparisons, like similarities and differences between George Orwell's 1984 and Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. Now, I haven't personally read the book, but it now does have a sequel that was written recently. The original one was written back in the 80s, which is kind of another interesting thing where this is written, however many decades ago, and we can still relate or start to relate to some of the things that she wrote about so many years ago, even today. And in the show, I know that they used it was like this big theocratic government that came in and took control over the modern day United States. And so they were kind of using God as that higher power that's always watching and that's always judging, and kind of utilize that as the reason for why everyone should fall in line into the caste system that they created for women and basically everybody. But really, when you would get into the story, you could really notice that it wasn't so much about being true to your faith or being faithful to a God. It was about control, and that was the aspect of control that they forced onto the citizens of Gilead. Now, in Big Brother, it's a similar kind of conversion, but instead of it being something that is categorized as a god, it is the Big Brother feature, which is more of kind of like a dictator, authoritarian. We don't really know for most of the novel, at least. And I know during my time reading it, I would often consider whether or not it was just something that these government officials made up to make the citizens feel even more oppressed and let them know that this watchful eye would always be over them, that they were going to be judged, they were going to be scrutinized by this omniscient individual, even though it was just a matter of control. And so that's a really interesting comparison that I've thought about a lot about. And for you guys, just it would be interesting to maybe go back and think about any kind of elements like that you see in modern society. Is there, even if it's not in this country, think about those that do sort of worship or are forced to be just kind of like recognizing their leaders as all-knowing in some sort of way, or being faithful to the government or faithful to a certain faith and not having freedom to have life outside of that aspect. So it's a really interesting thing to give some thought to. And if you've read The Handmaid's Tale or 1984, or watched the movie adaptations of 1984, or watched the show The Handmaid's Tale, really think about that comparison of Big Brother versus the God that Gilead claimed to serve. What was the goal there? Do you agree that it was more so about the control of the government, or do you feel that the government officials really held those kinds of values? What was their real reason for putting that kind of oppression onto the people?